Haven Bay, Oregon was a town where the Pacific Ocean whispered secrets and the salty air clung to your skin. Sophie stood in the kitchen of their beachfront cottage, the windows open to the rhythmic crash of waves. The late summer light filtered through the linen curtains, casting a soft glow on the hardwood floor. She stirred a pot of clam chowder, a recipe she'd perfected during Haven Bay's annual seafood festival, but her mind was elsewhere. Tonight felt different. The air was thick, humming with anticipation. She felt Liam's gaze steady, intense from the living room, where he sat flipping through a woodworking magazine. He had been patient, waiting, holding back, but not anymore. Sophie turned, meeting his eyes. He wasn't just watching now. She lifted her fingers, a quiet invitation. His breath caught, his body tensed, and then he stood. Their marriage had always been a dance of trust and adventure. 6 years ago, Sophie had left her fast-paced life in Portland to settle in Haven Bay with Liam, a carpenter with a quiet charm and a love for the sea. They'd built a life here, surrounded by a tight-knit community of artists, fishermen and dreamers. But lately, Sophie had sensed a restlessness in Liam, a hunger for something unspoken. Tonight it was palpable. Liam's hands rested against her waist, holding her close as their bodies moved together in the dim light of the cottage. Every deep breath, every subtle movement kept her skin warm with lingering energy. "Don't stop," Sophie murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The tension between them built until her body relaxed completely against his. He let out a slow breath, pulling her close as they settled into the quiet comfort of the moment. For a while they lay there, the warmth between them lingering. His fingers traced slow circles along her back, his chest rising and falling steadily. But something about the silence felt different. Sophie turned her head slightly, watching him. "You're quiet," she said. He let out a soft chuckle. "Just thinking." She smirked, letting her fingertips graze his skin. His hesitation was subtle, but she noticed how good that was. Sophie laughed softly, curling against him. "Yeah." It was. Her fingers traced idle patterns over his skin. "But have you ever thought about making it even better?" Liam's breath hitched slightly. "Better." She propped herself up on one elbow, watching him carefully. "We've always been adventurous, but what if we took it a step further?" His body tensed for a moment, so brief she almost missed it. That only made her more curious. "Come on," she coaxed, tilting her head. "I know you've thought about it." His gaze met hers, something flickering in his eyes. After a long exhale, he spoke. "There is something," he admitted, his voice low. Sophie arched a brow, anticipation curling in her stomach. "Tell me." He ran a hand through his hair, his expression a mix of vulnerability and resolve. "I want to see you experience something different." She blinked. "Different." His lips parted, as if choosing his words carefully. "Yes, but not with another man. With a woman." The words settled between them, heavy in the air. Sophie swallowed, her pulse quickening. She wasn't sure if the heat rising in her chest was nervousness or something more dangerous. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She wasn't sure how she felt. The thought lingered, slipping into her mind when she least expected it. The next morning, as she walked to the salty Brew Haven Bay's cozy cafe where she worked, the idea followed her. The cafe was bustling with locals and tourists, the air filled with the scent of fresh coffee and warm scones. Sophie poured espresso shots, her hands moving on autopilot, while her mind churned. Liam's words had sparked something she couldn't ignore. At first it felt absurd. She had never considered being with another woman, let alone with Liam watching. It should have been easy to dismiss. but it wasn't. Her friend Clara, the cafe's bartender with a sharp wit and a knack for reading. People noticed her distraction. Clara leaned against the counter, her dark curls bouncing as she wiped a glass. "You okay, Soph? You're a million miles away." Sophie forced a smile, handing a latte to a customer. "Just thinking about something Liam said." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Must be some conversation want to share." Sophie hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet." But Clara's knowing look stayed with her, pushing her to confront the idea head-on. She thought about her life before Haven Bay, her corporate job, the endless meetings, the pressure to be someone she wasn't. Marrying Liam had been her escape, a chance to redefine herself. But this was uncharted territory. That evening, over a bonfire on the beach with friends, Sophie watched Liam laugh with Mark, his co-worker at the local lumberyard. Mark was telling a story about a botched boat repair, his hands waving animatedly. Liam's eyes crinkled with amusement, but Sophie caught the way he glanced at her, a quiet intensity beneath his smile. She wondered what else he hadn't shared, what other desires he kept locked away. Later, as they walked home along the shore, the moonlight glinting off the waves, Sophie took his hand. "Liam," she said, her voice soft. "Why now? Why this fantasy?" He stopped, turning to face her. The wind ruffled his hair, and for a moment he looked younger, vulnerable. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe it's because we've built something so strong I feel safe wanting more. I want to see you free, in a way you've never been." His words hit her like a wave. Free. She hadn't realized how much she craved that freedom from her own doubts, from the expectations she still carried from her old life. The idea wasn't just about Liam's desire anymore. It was about her own. The more she thought about it, the less strange it seemed. Curiosity crept in, quiet, but persistent. It wasn't just the idea itself that lingered. It was the way Liam looked at her, the way it might change things between them. Would it? That question lingered more than she wanted to admit. Doubts pressed against her excitement. What if she liked it too much? What if it made Liam see her differently? What if it made her see herself differently? It felt like stepping into the unknown, something she couldn't fully predict. Yet, beneath the uncertainty, a quiet thrill stirred, growing each time she thought about it. A week later, Sophie sat with Clara at the cafe after closing. The lights dimmed a bottle of local Pinot Noir between them. Clara had a way of pulling truths out of people, and Sophie needed that now. "Okay," Sophie said, swirling her wine. "Liam suggested something wild, and I'm actually considering it." Clara's eyes lit up Wildhouse Spill woman. Sophie took a deep breath. "He wants me to be with another woman. With him there." Clara's jaw dropped. Then she laughed, not mockingly, but with delight. "Oh, Sophie, you dark horse, are you into it?" "I don't know," Sophie admitted. "Part of me is terrified, but part of me isn't." Clara leaned forward, her expression serious. "Listen, you and Liam have something solid, if this is something you both want. It could be incredible. But you've got to be honest with yourself. What's holding you back?" Sophie stared at her glass. "What if it changes me? Or us?" Clara shrugged. "Everything changes you. The question is, do you trust Liam to be there through it?" That night, Sophie lay awake. Liam's steady breathing beside her. Clara's words echoed in her mind. Trust. They'd built that over years, through Liam's long hours at the lumberyard, through Sophie's struggle to find her place in Haven Bay. She realized she did trust him enough to take this leap. Liam had wanted this, that much was clear. And if Sophie was honest, she wanted to know what it would feel like to give him what he wanted. The hesitation was still there, but it wasn't enough to stop her. She was going to do it. She didn't know how or with whom, but she knew one thing. This wasn't just his fantasy anymore. It was hers too. The following days passed in a blur. Sophie told herself not to overthink it. She had made her decision, and the anticipation only grew. Every glance at Liam, every casual touch made the excitement more real. She wasn't just agreeing to his fantasy. She was taking control of it. She began researching discreetly, reaching out through a private online community for like-minded couples in Haven Bay. That's where she found Ava, a confident photographer who had moved to town a year ago. Ava's messages were warm, direct, and intriguing. She was an artist, her work capturing the raw beauty of the Oregon coast. After a few conversations, Sophie knew Ava was the right person. They met at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town, a place where fishermen swapped stories over cheap beer. Ava was striking tall with auburn hair and eyes that seemed to see through you. So Ava said, sipping her drink. "You and Liam are ready for this," Sophie nodded, her nerves settling under Ava's calm confidence. "I think so. It's new for us, but we're curious." Ava smiled a slow, knowing curve of her lips. "Curiosity is a great place to start." "I'm in if you are." By the time Sophie had everything arranged, the nerves were gone, replaced with exhilaration. The right person, the right time, the perfect way to reveal it. All that was left was watching Liam's reaction. She spent the day preparing her hands steady as she set candles around the bedroom, their soft glow reflecting off the driftwood walls. Haven Bay's seafood festival was in full swing outside, the distant sound of music and laughter drifting through the open windows. But inside it was just them and soon Ava. That morning, as they lay in bed, Sophie rolled over to face Liam, her fingers tracing light patterns over his skin. He was still half asleep, his breathing slow and steady, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. She leaned in, her voice soft but firm. "I need you to be home by 8 tonight. No questions. Just trust me." His eyes flickered open, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. "What's happening at 8? She met his gaze, holding it just long enough to let curiosity sink in. "You'll see." His brows lifted slightly, but she could see the intrigue take hold. He wanted to ask more, but he knew her well enough to recognize when she wasn't going to budge. "All right," he finally said, stretching as he exhaled. "I'll be here." Good. Because by tonight his fantasy would become reality. Evening came quickly. The festival's noise faded as Sophie met Liam at the door, her pulse steady but buzzing with anticipation. He didn't know what was waiting, and that made it all the more exhilarating. His brow lifted slightly as she took his hand, offering only a knowing smile. "Come with me," she murmured, leading him down the hall. The door was slightly ajar, dim light spilling into the hallway. The moment they stepped inside, Sophie felt the shift, the charged air, the weight of expectation. Then Liam saw Ava. She was waiting, poised on the edge of the bed, her posture effortless, exuding confidence. Her auburn hair caught the candlelight, and her gaze flickered over Liam briefly before settling on Sophie. Something unreadable flashing in her eyes. Sophie heard Liam's slow inhale, saw his body tense slightly. He wasn't just watching. He was absorbing every detail, processing what was about to happen. Ava's fingers brushed against Sophie's wrist, a light touch at first, then higher, tracing up her arm with deliberate intent. Sophie turned toward her, drawn in, instinctively, her breath catching, as Ava's palm smoothed over her skin. There was something different about this new, unfamiliar but intoxicating. The first kiss was soft, slow, exploratory. A tentative meeting of lips that deepened into something more. Sophie's body responded before her mind could catch up, leaning into Ava's touch, her hands finding Ava's waist, feeling her warmth beneath her fingertips. A quiet exhale came from behind her, low and controlled but unmistakable. Sophie didn't need to turn to know Liam was watching, feeling every second of this as much as she was. They took their time savouring the slow unravelling. Ava's hands moved with purpose, slipping beneath fabric, guiding Sophie into something deeper. Every brush of skin sent ripples of warmth through her, the slow build of discovery making her shudder. Then Ava took the lead, her lips leaving Sophie's to trace a deliberate path along her collarbone, then lower, exploring with unhurried precision. Sophie's breath faltered, shivers coursing through her as Ava's touch lingered at her hips, her body reacting instinctively. There was no rush, only the careful unravelling of anticipation, a slow building heat that left Sophie breathless. Ava's touch grew more intentional, drawing her further into the moment. A low, strained sound from across the room broke through the haze. Sophie turned her head slightly, her vision blurring at the edges. Liam was still in the chair, but barely. His hands gripped the arms tightly, his chest rising and falling with measured restraint. His gaze was locked on her, his expression unreadable, but his posture and tension spoke volumes. He was barely holding himself together. The air felt thick with unspoken understanding. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was caught in this as much as she was. Sophie met Liam's gaze, her fingers reaching toward him, the movement, small but deliberate. An invitation, a quiet acknowledgement that his presence mattered. His hands loosened, his body tensed, and then he stood. The moment he stepped forward, the energy in the room shifted. Sophie felt it before she saw him. The weight of his presence, the heat of his skin as he came close. His hands found her waist, fingers pressing in just enough to send a thrill through her. When she looked up, his eyes were on hers, dark and intense, filled with something unspoken. His lips met hers. The kiss deep, filled with everything words couldn't express. A slow pull, a quiet surrender. Sophie melted against him, his warmth surrounding her as his hands traced her back. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice low against her lips. A shiver ran down her spine, not just from his words, but from the way he said them. Like this moment was everything he had ever wanted. Then Ava moved. Her presence felt before Sophie turned her head. She was watching them, a slow, knowing smile curving her lips. There was no hesitation in her gaze, only quiet confidence as she leaned in, her fingers trailing over Liam's stomach lower, until he let out a sharp exhale. Sophie didn't look away as Ava kissed down his body, her touch exploring, teasing. Sophie's lips stayed on Liam's, her hands tangled in his hair, feeling the quiet tremor that ran through him. Liam's breath grew heavier, his body reacting to every delicate movement Ava made. His fingers tightened on Sophie's back as Ava's touch grew more focused, a deep sound slipping from his throat. His reaction sent something electric through Sophie, the way his body tensed, the way his fingers dug into her hips, as if he needed something to ground himself. It was intoxicating to watch, to feel him respond to every slow movement. Then Sophie moved with Ava, trailing kisses down Liam's jaw along his neck, feeling the heat of his pulse beneath her lips lower still until she was beside Ava. Their movements synced in silent understanding. Liam's head fell back, his breath uneven, lost in the moment between them. Every sound he made sent a fresh wave of heat through Sophie, pulling her deeper into it, a shift, a change in position. Ava was on the bed now beneath Sophie, her breath warm against Sophie's skin. Ava's hands guided her, settling her into place. A sharp inhale, leaving Sophie's lips as Ava began. Sophie's fingers curled into the sheets as sensation flooded through her slow, teasing strokes, dragging her under, making her head fall back. And then Liam. The weight of his body against Ava's, the deep exhale that left his lips as he moved with intent. A quiet gasp escaped Ava, her breath hitching against Sophie's skin. Sophie felt every shift beneath her, Liam's presence, steady, unyielding. His hands steadied Ava, every movement drawing a reaction beneath Sophie, her breath, her hands the brush of her lips against Sophie. It was all too much, an intoxicating mix of sensation that sent Sophie's pulse racing, but it was Liam that undid her the way he looked at her. His gaze locked onto hers, dark and heavy with intensity. Every movement he made sent a shiver through both of them, but it was the way he never looked away, the way he reached for her, his fingers brushing against her skin, his lips capturing hers. That was what unravelled Sophie completely. Her body tensed. Her breath caught, and the sensation overtook her in waves. She wasn't alone. Liam groaned deeply, his grip tightening, his body trembling as the moment consumed him. His voice lingered low and rough, saying her name. Then silence. His forehead pressed against hers, his breath still uneven. A slow, satisfied exhale slipping from his lips. A small, breathless laugh left Sophie, her fingers still tangled in the sheets. She turned her head slightly, her lips brushing against his ear, happy, his arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, pressing a lingering kiss to her shoulder. More than you know. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the cottage windows, casting soft patterns on the hardwood floor. Sophie woke to the sound of waves. Liam's arm draped over her. Ava had left quietly in the night, leaving only a note on the bedside table. "Thank you for an unforgettable evening." Sophie smiled, tucking the note away. She turned to Liam, who was stirring awake. "So," she said, her voice light. "Was it everything you imagined?" He grinned, pulling her closer. "More. But you surprised me, Soph. I didn't expect you to embrace it like that." She laughed, resting her head against his chest. "I surprised myself, but as the days passed, Sophie couldn't shake a new question. What did this mean for them now? The experience had brought them closer, but it had also opened a door she hadn't anticipated. Would they explore this again? Could they go back to the way things were? She found herself watching Liam more closely, noticing the way he lingered when he kissed her, the way his hands felt more deliberate, as if he too was navigating this new terrain. At the cafe, Clara cornered Sophie during a slow shift. "Okay, Spill. You've been glowing all week. What's going on with you and Liam?" Sophie hesitated, then leaned in, lowering her voice. "Let's just say we tried something new." Clara's eyes widened. New. Like. New. "Oh, you're telling me everything later," Sophie laughed. But Clara's curiosity mirrored her own. The experience had changed something in her. unlocked a confidence she hadn't known she had, but it also made her wonder about the boundaries of their marriage. She and Liam had always been open, but this was uncharted territory. One evening over dinner at the Crab Shack, Haven Bay's favourite seaside diner, Sophie broached the subject. The restaurant was alive with the clink of glasses and the hum of conversation, the walls adorned with fishing nets and old photos of the town. "Liam," she said, setting down her fork, "what happens next? Was this a one-time thing, or—" He looked at her, his expression soft but thoughtful. "I don't know. I loved it, loved sharing that with you. But it's up to us. What do you want?" She paused, the question hanging between them, I think. "I want to keep exploring. Not just this, but us. What we're capable of together." Liam reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." The conversation didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, Sophie and Liam grew closer, their bond strengthened by the trust they'd built. They didn't rush into anything new, but the possibility lingered, a quiet thrill in the background of their lives. Sophie started painting again, a hobby she'd abandoned years ago. Her canvases filled with the wild beauty of the Oregon coast, crashing waves, windswept cliffs, the endless horizon. Liam, inspired by her, took up woodworking with renewed passion, crafting a small table for their patio, its edges smoothed by his careful hands. But the experience with Ava had ripples they hadn't anticipated. At the lumber yard, Mark teased Liam about his mysterious good mood, and Liam brushed it off with a laugh. Yet Sophie noticed the way Liam carried himself, now more confident, more open. She wondered if others saw it too. At the seafood festival's closing night, as they danced under string lights to a local band, Sophie caught Ava's eye across the crowd. Ava was there with a group of artists, her camera slung around her neck. She raised her glass to Sophie, a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Sophie smiled back, a quiet understanding passing between them. The festival wasn't the only place where Haven Bay's community noticed a change. Clara, ever perceptive, pulled Sophie aside one afternoon. "You're different," she said, her tone half teasing, half serious. "Not just happier, braver." "What's going on?" Sophie shrugged, but her smile gave her away. "Maybe I'm just figuring out who I am," Clara grinned. "Well, whoever she is, I like her." Sophie's newfound confidence spilled into other parts of her life. She joined a local art collective, her paintings earning praise at a gallery show. She started running along the beach each morning, the rhythm of her footsteps matching the waves. But with every step forward, a small voice lingered. What if this was just the beginning? What if there were more doors to open, more parts of herself to discover? One evening, as they sat on their patio, the new table between them, Liam opened up in a way he rarely did. The sky was streaked with pink and gold, the air cool with the promise of fall. "You know," he said, his voice low, "I was scared to tell you about the fantasy. I thought you'd think I was, I don't know, ungrateful, like what we had wasn't enough." Sophie reached for his hand. "I'm glad you did. It wasn't just about you. It made me realize how much I was holding back too." He looked at her, his eyes soft. "You're incredible, Soph." "I don't say it enough," she smiled, squeezing his hand. "You don't have to. I feel it." In the weeks that followed, Haven Bay settled into its quiet autumn rhythm. The tourists left, the streets grew calm, and Sophie and Liam found a new balance. They didn't seek out Ava again, but they didn't close the door on future possibilities. Their marriage felt alive, electric with potential. They talked more openly now, sharing dreams they'd once kept hidden. Sophie admitted her longing to travel to see the world beyond Haven Bay. Liam confessed his dream of building a boat, sailing it along the coast. They made plans not just for adventures, but for a life that embraced every facet of who they were. One crisp October evening, as they walked along the beach, the tide pulling at their bare feet, Sophie stopped to face Liam. The sky burned with the last light of day, and the wind carried the scent of salt and possibility. "I'm glad we did it," she said. "Not just for you, but for me. For us." He pulled her close, the waves crashing behind them. "Me too. Whatever comes next, we're in it together." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sophie felt it a quiet certainty that this was only the beginning. Haven Bay, with its endless ocean and whispered secrets, had given them a gift, the courage to explore, to trust, to love without limits. They would carry that with them wherever the tide took them next.